Um, so it's, and it really is about grief is a form of love, I think,
Hmm.
and with all the positives and negatives of love, because love can make us crazy. Um, but grief is a form of love because you grieve the loss of someone you love. In the end, I think really who we are is basically who we love.
Mm.
So loss is wrenching. Um, but part it's grief is the price we pay for love.
Yeah.
Um, and the more you love that person, probably the harder you're going to grieve. And the grief is the last part of that love.
Yeah, I think I agree with that 100%. Grief is the price that we pay for love. Uh, there's, love is a risk. Whenever we love anybody, anything, it's a risk because it can be taken away. That's part of what makes it so precious. And then we have to decide, is it worth me going through this? Is it, but I think ultimately most of us decide it's worth taking that risk, even knowing that, none of us lives forever. At some point we're going to part with that loved one, but we
Right,
do it anyway.
right. I mean, life would have no meaning without death. So it's not something we can turn off. And when we talk about love, you know, love isn't always a choice. Sometimes it is, but when it comes to your parents, it's not a choice. You're born loving them,
Right.
no matter what happens.
Right.
And a lot of things going to happen in your relationship with your parents, but you are born loving those two people, and so that's going to be part of your growth and your grief throughout from the beginning to the end of your life.
Mhm.
You know, and missing someone is not the same as grieving them either. I think it's okay to miss people who have gone on. Of course, you
Right.
miss people who go on a world trip. Why
Right.
not miss people who have died? But missing them is something different, I think, than grieving. And, grieving them is a real deep sense of loss.
Yes. Yes. I often say to people, it's like we don't grieve someone when they go on a trip. When your daughter goes away to college, like my daughter went away to college, and I was upset. I was sad. I missed her, but I didn't grieve her. And I think the difference is, and this is where we can start to mitigate the grief, is when we understand they haven't really gone away. We are going to see them again, and shifting that perspective, I think it can help to mitigate the grief and turn it into more of a missing them, a more of a, and then like you said earlier, when it comes to the memories when someone first crosses over can be actually painful, and people will want to put the memories away and not remember. And sometimes people will even, I don't want to see my loved one's picture because it's going to trigger me. It's going to cause me to go through
Mm-hmm.
the whole grieving process again. But when I see my daughter's picture now, I smile. I love the memories of the time I had with her, and that's that
Right,
transition we can make.
right. I do. I keep a picture of my mother in my home office. Just so it's not. It's like okay, she lived, she died, she loved you, and it was really good. And just
Mhm.
don't be afraid of that picture. And I remember, when the moment she died, and I was not there. I had been there the last couple of weeks, but I had to leave. And my brother and my sister were away. I gave them kind of some relief time and spent time with my mother. And
Mhm.
just spent and took off from work and just spent time with her. But then I had to go, and she waited until they came back, you know,
Mhm.
to die. Um, but I was teaching a writer's workshop in Arizona, and that morning before the day began, that morning I decided I wanted to go for a hike. I wanted to hike up a mountain, so I found this mountain outside. Um, I forget where it was, but southern Arizona, and I got to the top of the mountain. I just felt overcome. Just overcome. I was breathless from the climb. And I lay down and just looked at the sun. And I felt this incredible feeling. It was like a swooning of the soul, like something was being lifted, a whooshing. It was physical. It was a physical thing. And then I had to get back to where we were meeting, and I climbed back down the hillside and the path. And I went back into our hotel, and there was a message for me. And I
Mm.
knew what that message was.
Yeah.
I knew that my mother had died. And, and when I looked into it, it was at the exact same moment that I was on top of that mountain. I felt
Yeah.
like she passed on the way up.
Yeah, exactly. That's beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful that you had that experience and were able to have that connection and feel her. I think sometimes people do. They stop by on the way out and they say goodbye, to the
They
loved
do.
ones. Yeah.
I in Guidepost magazine and some of our other we have Guidepost magazine. We also have Angels on Earth magazine, which is about people's encounters with angelic forces, not just angelic beings, but and we have a magazine called Mysterious Ways. And there's so many stories in those magazines about people who have had some sort of, you know, relationship, experience, with a loved one who's gone on or who is passing. I mean, it's almost common, and people shouldn't be frightened or ashamed of it because I know people are sometimes scared to even talk about some of the things surrounding the death of a loved one. But there's all sorts of miracles that we are given, to help us.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. If you like what you see here, make sure you watch the full video linked below.